started thinking about it. I kind of figured out a lot of stuff about Earth. I was thinking about Eurasia. You know, the map of USA, or the planet before, I should say, the continents divided. And I don't know, I made a song. It's called Started with One Raindrop. And I don't know, I've got quite a few views on it so far, and I kind of came to a conclusion of what my idea or my theory of that song might actually mean to like the universe after people have listened to it. Their theories all built up and being like, kind of like understood and basically put in place for somebody to understand it more better from the song and all the viewers. And I came up with like a idea or a theory, and I started thinking about it. I was like, maybe this is true. And basically, my song basically just speaks about like the beginning of life, how frogs were the first thing on the planet. There are probably other animals too, but there's probably millions and millions of frogs, and they were all in Eurasia, where the Amazon was, is what I believe what Eurasia was, a galactic rainforest. And basically, if there's millions of frogs and it's raining, and positivity is what brings a chromosome out of rain or water into a happy format or a happier, structure, I really believe, like our world must have been very positive back in the day. Very, very positive. Very positive. Very, like, happy, if you want to call it, because of all the positivity from all the animals. The sun must have been really, really an amazing thing, and the weather must just have been perfect at that time. But my theory is this: if we were able to, you know, have that happen, where everything was so positive and everything was perfect and everything was just how it was supposed to be, and then all of a sudden Eurasia split, and there was like a flood on planet Earth, everything would have flooded. But what if there was different, areas on Earth where different kind of hibernating animals were living or even alive, migrating or doing what they're doing, like killer bees? They say they're from China, but if they're from all the way back from Eurasia, why would they be from China if they're from a part of the planet? So if you can understand what I'm getting to, is basically if the Earth flooded when Eurasia split in half and the continents divided and the Earth flooded, and all the what they call killer bees, these gigantic bees that somewhere live on our planet, had to migrate because the Earth flooded, and they had nowhere to go except where all the food was, which was where all the frogs were, which was where they ended up going to get food after the world flooded, because there were so many, and they attacked them. And this is where my I don't know what I would call it, theory, hypothesis. I've came up with a lot of different ideas so far. But if you think about that, and then if you actually like understand, like the fact that they had to migrate across the water, to the next land, and like if you were able to put that in like a bigger picture of like, it's hard to explain. Basically, all I'm trying to say is, if Eurasia split in half, and there was tons of frogs, and then there was those bees, and they just migrated to where the frogs were because their part of Earth flooded, and they had to have something to eat, and then they ate the frogs. And uh, what if it was mating season for the frogs? There'd be tons of specimen left over, and if they did migrate from that area of the planet to the other opposite area of the planet, that after it split in Eurasia, wouldn't there be some kind of like attaching specimen to the bees as they flew over? And I started thinking about it like, if there was actually an alive creature or being or instinct of life attached to something and it had that much positivity built up into it, and it actually was flying over an ocean, could there be whales? And underneath those, all those bees flying over all those whales, could their harmony still bring peace to the whales by actually somehow announcing to stay happy, to keep us positive, to keep us as positive as possible? And I just came to the conclusion, of the theory of like basically, if it happened and Earth split up at Eurasia and the Earth flooded, and killer bees is what they call them, gigantic bees. If they actually migrated to where the frogs were and then ate the frogs and then flew over to where our part of our, you know, world is, if you want to call it like that, what would it have done to the human evolution of like species of us? Because if we were completely happy at first when the world was 100% correct, what are we supposed to actually like like if you can understand me, what if the frogs, like all of them being eaten and stung by those bees, what would that do to our positivity as a human being from back then, being built up in the DNA strain and the chromosomes of what makes people into who they are today, from back then, Earth, evolving and evolution is what I'm looking for the word of. And if you were actually to take time all the way from back then, and you never know. I mean, these frogs might have been the dream, if you can understand me. Like, they might have been the dimethyltryptamine frogs. You never actually know. This is back in Eurasia. We don't have a clue. So if they were producing life and thought and dream and like pattern of evolution of future and like futuristic and futuristic scenes and basically of what they want to see and understand, if are basically on their own journey, is basically how I see the evolution of what these frogs did for us human beings. And we have our evolution, our happy and peaceful people, and we have our other evolution, our unhappy and negative people. And I just see like it broken down basically from Eurasia splitting up in those killer bees, or if you want to call them that, big gigantic bees, showing up to where all the frogs were and basically eating them because they had nothing else to eat, which then ruined our DNA strain. Not ruined, well, temperamentally, you can call it ruined for now, unless they can fix it, somehow. God bless if the UFOs, once they become legal to understand about, and actually we can know about their futuristic evolution of technology advancements. I really think that we will be able to evolutionize our minds back into 100% positivity, and our space and time, and our, people that we're bringing up underneath of us. I really think that we can give them 100% opportunity to make them into a fuller 100% capable way of actually living to the normality of all combined humans alike. I really do mean that. And by that, I mean if there's evolution of science, I really hope it advances as soon as possible for there never to be a problem with, uh, anything ever again. I can't really be too like can't quote too much because it's really a vibration that puts out just a lot of emotion. So I just want to say, evolution and science can go by far a lot farther than it is now, and I believe that hospitals and places like that really, you know honestly don't need to be there. I think we can actually be evolutionalized through our own our own mind power of how our brains know what we can do to change the planet. And I really believe, it's just something that we need to do, because if you take it back to evolution and you see that, like the interesting point of what I'm saying of maybe a dimethyltryptamine frog was the beginning of life and created the evolution of humans, and you never know, maybe if these bees did show up and stung them and specimen lashed on and flew over the ocean, and whales somehow interacted with these specimens that were attached to these bees, and like whales being the future of the ocean, the designers of the orbs, rolling the ocean underneath their their pathway through their stream of what they swim through. I just really realized we're making human evolution happen, And we got to actually understand what we're doing to make a better evolution in the future. So if we can take it to the very beginning, which they said the world went extinct, our dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago, give or take however many it's been since they started that, category or that theory. Now, if it was 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs went extinct, in the same time was the same time Eurasia split in half about 65 million years ago. Is there like, there's not too much I could really, try to make like well, if you were to break it down like, the rocket at the speed of light, maybe it was 65 million years ago when it hit Earth the first time. Had dinosaurs, had Eurasia, we had the real planet going on. And then all of a sudden the rocket at the speed of light comes through, goes right through the video reel of God's imagination, and destroys a pixel in it. And through evolution, time keeps moving, pattern keeps building up with positivity, and we just rebuild the planet how we have to. And it's the same thing as a Mayan calendar. It's no different. A rocket at the speed of light had to travel through, and basically, if like a star is like to another star, like a reel to a reel in a video reel of what you can't see. God's imagination works the same way here on planet Earth. Everything built around us is man-made. It's not constructed by God. It's constructed by humans' imagination. But if you can construct the seed of actually seeing a video reel, what you travel through is God's imagination. Almost like if you were to say, while you're walking down the street, your feet are, bending the concrete underneath of you because you realize that you're just a light on, a distinct area of space and time. And if you can, believe that you're in an orb, you would really realize that you're just rolling the video film underneath of you. That's really all you're doing. It's just rolling the film underneath of you everywhere you travel through. And you just, I can quote it like, uh, if you were to be walking up a hill, you just roll the world underneath of you. That's really like, to make it so it's not like you're using energy. You're just basically rolling the world underneath your feet. And if you were to think about it like your feet bending through space and time underneath concrete as you walk down the street, it's, kind of like a vision of how you can understand it. Uh, Another way of looking at life is if you were at, a side of a water bank or a water river, and if you are looking at the river and you're standing up, compared to if the water was running down in front of you, down like a wall, and nobody understood how that pixel could actually be, which would make a boat, if it's out in the water sideways, completely sideways, swimming horizontal, and if you were then standing, you would be the opposite sideways of what that pixel would be, if you can understand me. Basically, you got to understand there's so many different, you know, theories of how God's imagination works. I'm just breaking down the beginning of what happened. And, if you can understand, like, the God's pixel of what happened then, I have no clue, but some kind of evolution through space and time didn't have the science and the advancements to save our planet, like our Mayans did and like our Egyptians did. We had an evolution through science of meditation and peace and harmony and universe of what we are, basically a verse of us all together looking up to the sky and communicating with these higher beings and these entities and these species of these creatures that come to us to give us the answers on how to save our planet in a better way. And I've been believing this since day one, and I'm, uh, I'm 32, so from the beginning, I've been really believing this whole evolution to a whole higher standard, and like if you are able to understand like the movie Close Encounters with the Third Kind, like I do, Imagine if you knew the date of when the spaceship was supposed to be there, and imagine if you knew where it was supposed to be, and imagine if you didn't have a way to get there, but you knew actually a shortcut to be able to get there, but you have to get there to be able to make the shortcut. It's